Welcome to Let's Talk Sports by the Lake in Erie, Pennsylvania. I'm Julian Howell.
And I'm Jake Bartko.
And we are a sports talk show based in Erie, Pennsylvania. And on the show, we want to discuss some thought-provoking topics. So on today's show, we're going to discuss the NFL Combine, Joe Mixon. And as you know, Joe Mixon is a guy, was a running back for Oklahoma who got into some trouble off the field with domestic violence. And we'll also talk about Dirk Nowitzki's recent milestone of reaching 30,000 points and the Brock Osweiler trade, because that's something, even though it was a few weeks ago, it's still very fluid. You know, it has a lot of implications. And we'll also talk about the MVP race as well. So, do you want to start with Joe Mixon?
Yeah, let's talk about Joe Mixon. The NFL Combine was a couple weeks ago, and the NFL has started to have this policy where they are not inviting players with off-the-field discrepancies or allegations against them to the Combine. Whether they are legitimate problems with the player or what, they're not actually inviting them to the Combine to participate in the pre-draft process. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think that's something they should be doing?
Well, I think it's something they definitely should be doing, because it's just something that sends a message like you have to behave yourself, even on a college campus. And not everyone's invited to the NFL Combine. So like, there's several players out there who weren't invited,
right,
for example. But I can't really give you a number of the people who weren't invited because of off-field issues. But Joe Mixon is somebody who's very notable in this situation, because he was a really good player for Oklahoma. I think maybe 2 years ago, that's when the incident happened.
Right.
At the diner. And yeah, basically it was just, so he called this girl's friend like a gay slur. That's just something that's really inappropriate. So she stood up for her friend, she hit him. And when Joe Mixon retaliated and proceeded to hit this woman, and she had injuries in her jaw, and she had to go to the hospital as a result. And yeah, it's just something that really affected her. You know, she couldn't go to an Oklahoma football game ever again.
Right.
And I can't imagine like how she's feeling right now, or how she will feel like if he gets drafted. But I'm sorry, back to the NFL Combine.
Yeah, no, I think knowing the backstory of the situation is important in any of these cases, but I agree with you. I think the NFL is in the right not to invite players that have some off-the-field issues in college. The NFL is setting a precedence so that those issues don't continue if these players are drafted to an NFL team.
Yeah, something I noticed was that several of the general managers thought that it was unfair that Joe Mixon wasn't at the Combine. And I understand that to a certain extent, because you want to get to the bottom of every story. You want to know if they're remorseful. You want to know what they're doing to prevent that from happening, like in the community. And one of the most notable GMs to say something was Bob Quinn of the Detroit Lions. And we'll show the graphic or the video of his statement about Joe Mixon. He was very disappointed about Joe Mixon not being at the Combine, because they really wanted to talk to him, because at the Combine, a lot of players talk to different teams. And I think a lot of coaches and GMs want to talk to him about the situation, know if he was remorseful. And it's just really, problematic.
It's really disappointing that Joe's not here. I think it's, we come here to see the best college football players in the college football. So there's 330, 40 some odd players here, and for him not being here because of those issues, personally, I don't think that's real fair, because we have a lot of investigation that we want to do on him, and to get him in one spot for all the teams would have been great. I'm not part of those decisions about how guys are chosen, but I think it is a disappointment that guys like him, and there's a few others you can put in that category, that we're going to be chasing around on the month of March and April, and it's really unfair to the players, to be honest with you. So the door's open, and I'd like to be able to get a chance to sit down with the people that know Joe and kind of see what the circumstances were around the incident.
What are the intangibles that you would want?
He is still on our draft board, yes.
A few weeks after the combine, he had his pro day at the University of Oklahoma.
Right.
And all 32 teams were there to see him. And even though he doesn't, I don't want to give like a big stance on. I mean, domestic violence is wrong. For so long it was just a domestic issue, but it's really become a legal issue. People are facing the consequences for it.
Absolutely, as they should.
As they should be.
Absolutely.
And I was watching the Sports Center with Jamel Hill and Michael Smith, and they spoke about Joe Mixon. It was the day of his pro day, and they were just saying that that 32 teams show up to the pro day, and like they feel like Michael Smith said that 32 teams did not show up at the pro day not to draft him, and I feel like he might get drafted like within the first 4 rounds, and whoever drafts him might take a PR hit.
Absolutely.
And
they're going to have to deal with those consequences that Joe Mixon did in college. I mean, honestly.
And back to Bob Quinn for a second. A journalist for the Detroit Free Press, it's a publication I read a lot as a Detroit sports fan. He was really adamant about how he thinks the Lions should not draft Joe Mixon because of his off the field incident. And he really raised a really important point. He said, what if Joe Mixon had hit Martha Firestone Ford, the owner of the Detroit Lions? Would Bob Quinn
Draft him?
if that was like the situation?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Right.
And I mean, whoever drafts Joe Mixon is going to have to consult with the owner of the team, because because some teams are not going to be willing to take the PR hit of drafting him.
I agree. It's an unfortunate situation that the young man in college put himself in,
Yeah.
and he's going to deal with the consequences of that by not getting drafted as early, maybe not getting drafted at all. That shows. It shows that hopefully these teams will stand up for the right thing and against domestic violence and not have players on their teams that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame. I mean, that he did that, because you should never hit a woman under any circumstance. And I mean, I see why he's such a great prospect. I mean, we'll show his numbers on the graphic. He rushed for about 1,200 yards, had 600 receiving yards. So he's a guy who could be every down player at the running back position. He'll be on the field every down.
But it's just his off-the-field issues are causing teams to take a second look.
Yeah.
So. Okay, you want to move on to our next topic of Dirk Nowitzki and him reaching the milestone 30,000 points.
Nowitzki 2 away from 30,000.
Every time Dallas gets the ball, as far as Dirk's quest is concerned, he has it now.
Nowitzki with a baseline, one-on-one. Dirk Nowitzki has joined the legendary quintet of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Karl Malone, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, and Wilt Chamberlain with 30,000 points in his NBA career.
A lot of great players are on that list, and is it fair to maybe put Dirk in that conversation as one of the all-time greats?
I think so. I think you have to put him in that conversation. As you mentioned, those other 5 players on that list of the top 6 have Hall of Fame careers. Some are in the Hall of Fame, except for Kobe.
Well, Kobe will be in the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
First ballot.
Yes.
He'll be going with KG and Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
They'll be in the same class.
They will be first ballot Hall of Famers. I agree, and I think that Dirk is on that same level. He's a top 10 all-time forward. I can't say that he's a top 10 all-time player, but he's a top 10 all-time forward.
There's no doubt.
But yeah, I mean, the 30,000 points is quite the accomplishment, and it not only says great things about his scoring ability, but his longevity. He's been in the league for long enough to accomplish that feat that only 5 other players have done.
And just another element I really want to bring into this segment is his relationship with his shooting coach, Holger Geschwindner. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but it's a guy he's known since he was a teenager. And there's a really captivating documentary called The Perfect Shot, and it really delves into their relationship. How every summer Dirk goes back to Germany and they just work out. They do different exercises and really work on his shot. And his shot is not really just we both played basketball before. You square up, you shoot. It's kind of like a turkey neck.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And
Square up, elbow in.
And he does all that, but Holger really emphasizes, the angle of the shot. And so Holger was also a physicist.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
There's really a lot that goes into Dirk's shot, more than
people would think.
It's really it's a science, because Holger measures the angles. He's a very detail-oriented guy, and we showed on the graphic that Holger was really emotional. He was crying. It shows their relationship, because they're
absolutely
more than just
lifelong relationship.
Lifelong relationship. It's not just a coach to player relationship. They're actually friends. It shows in the documentary that they actually travel together too, just for fun. So they have a really good relationship.
Awesome.
And that's something I think that's really powerful. Captivating. And when Dirk gets into the Hall of Fame, he definitely will be a Hall of Famer.
Oh, he's going to be a first ballot
Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
I look forward to hearing what he says about his relationship with Holger. Because it's just.
Yeah, obviously that's been instrumental in his scoring ability throughout his career. He's known as one of the best shooters of all time, obviously.
Yeah.
With his patent fadeaway jumper.
Holds the knee up, and it's really fitting.
Yeah.
On his 30,000th point, he had that signature shot, where he holds the knee up, has the knee sticking out.
It was an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah. I agree. And he won the championship. I don't really hold it against him for losing that championship in 2006. You remember where they were up 2-0.
Yes, that was against Miami Heat.
It was against Miami Heat. They were up 2-0 and they blew that. And it's not something that people are gonna hold against him. I don't feel like they will.
No, I don't think so.
Maybe if he never won a championship.
Right, but he has a championship under his belt. It was a 2-0 lead. It's not like a 3-1 lead. Not like a 3-1 lead. Just wanted to throw that out there. But yeah, I don't think they're going to hold that against. I don't think they're going to.
So moving on to our third topic. So Brock Osweiler was traded to the Cleveland Browns from the Houston Texans after signing a 4-year, was it $72 million?
$72 million. I think it was $60 million. Or it was $45 million guaranteed.
Okay.
But yeah, $72 million 4-year contract with the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
That was last free agency, last offseason. So first day of free agency, the Houston Texans went out, made a bold statement, signed Brock Osweiler, and it did not work out very well for them.
Yeah, it was very bold. He played with. So as we know, he was with the Denver Broncos. Peyton Manning's backup for about 4 years. So. He learned from one of the greatest of all time, and I think he played pretty decent during his stretch of playing time. Peyton had an injury.
Yeah, he came in and he played. He started a couple of games when Peyton was injured, and he played solid. And I think that's what the Houston Texans were banking on him doing for their organization as well.
But. I've read and I've heard that he worked really hard with the Texans. He was staying in the film room really late. He really prepared hard, but when he was on the field, he just never showed up. He threw interceptions. He was one of the leaders in interceptions thrown. He really couldn't get the ball to DeAndre Hopkins, who
is their best receiver.
And really coming to that season was considered one of the best receivers in the NFL. And it just didn't work out. And there was I also read that there was an incident between Bill O'Brien and Brock Osweiler. I don't really know what happened, but I heard got physical during that last game against the Tennessee Titans.
Right. Yeah,
So-
I saw that as well.
Yeah, so basically what happened was that Tom Savage got a concussion during the game. They put Brock Osweiler in, and while Brock Osweiler was in during the first half, Tom Savage is going through concussion protocol, as all players who have symptoms of
Right.
concussions. And so they go into halftime, and Brock is thinking that Tom Savage will return the second half, because sometimes players go through concussion protocol and are able to come back in the game.
Yeah. They're cleared to medically cleared to come back in the game and play.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I guess Bill O'Brien told Brock, hey, we'll need you to go back to the game. And Brock took that personally, and I heard it got physical. I don't really know the whole story, but I heard that incident is really what triggered this trade, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Bill O'Brien and Brock Osweiler didn't really have a good relationship, and I don't think, from what I also read, that Bill O'Brien didn't know about the Brock Osweiler trade. Signing. Like, he never really met with him, and it wasn't really something
wow. That he was on board with. Okay.
You know?
Well, I think in the NFL, having a head coach be on board with his star
General
quarterback,
manager.
yeah, who they need to be on the same page, and I think that was a big mishap on their part. Bill O'Brien, coming from Penn State, was supposedly one of the big quarterback gurus.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, he should be the number one person knowing which quarterback is good for his team. So yeah, I was very surprised when they traded Brock to the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, yeah.
Being a Cleveland Browns fan, I did not know what to think about the trade.
Oh, yeah.
Because I saw Brock Osweiler's struggles throughout the season,
Oh, yeah.
and on the Cleveland Browns, they don't have anybody really holding down that position currently.
Oh,
But the Cleveland Browns did receive a second-round pick and a sixth-round pick
Oh, yeah.
in exchange for their fourth. So I think overall the trade worked out for both parties because the Texans got to relieve themselves of a $16 million salary of Brock Osweiler, but they also had to give up a second-round pick, to achieve that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I think it works for both teams, because I think the Browns will keep Brock Osweiler for one season. Maybe they'll draft a quarterback this year in the second round, or maybe with their 12th pick, because they have 2 first-round picks, as you know.
Right.
And so there's really a lot of avenues they could go with like their draft picks, because they have several draft picks, as you know. And I mean, I don't think Brock Osweiler is a long-term quarterback in Cleveland.
I don't think so either.
I just don't think so. I don't see it. And I mean, I don't see the Browns drafting a quarterback first overall. I mean, I think they'll probably take Myles Garrett out of Texas A&M. He's really a player with a lot of upside. He's really fast off that edge, athletic defensive end. You don't see those guys that often. And I think they'll go with him. And we'll see what else they do, but I'm pretty sure they're not going to draft a quarterback.
No, I think they're the unanimous selection, from all the mock drafts that I've been looking at, and reading articles around the league, is Myles Garrett going number 1. He is on another tier from everyone else in the draft. So I think it's kind of a no-brainer in their eyes. I hope so, anyways. To draft, the big need on their team is a pass rusher, and he kind of fits that mold for them.
Oh yeah. I mean, if they want to draft Mitch Trubisky out of North Carolina or UNC, I mean, they can do that with the 12th pick. I don't know if they'll do that. I've seen several mock drafts where maybe they'll draft that guy out of Texas Tech, Patrick Mahomes.
Yes.
There's a lot they can do with their, first 3 picks, really the whole draft, but they're not going to draft a quarterback number 1 overall. And Joe Thomas, their All-Pro, future Hall of Famer left tackle, said after the season ended, please don't draft a quarterback.
We have so many other holes on the team to
Yeah,
fill.
so-
Yeah, and he's been there throughout the past several years, seeing all this changeover. So, and the thing about it is none of the quarterbacks in this 2017 draft class have a first-round rating. Most of them are graded out to second-round picks and later. So I think there will be a few teams that reach for a quarterback in the first round, like there is every year. But I don't foresee a quarterback being taken within the first 10 picks. I think the first one may be taken at 12.
In the NFL, I feel like the quarterback, I mean, it's like the only constant for a team. Like you don't see a quarterback, leave a team in free agency. You see other players of other positions leave to go to other teams, But like with the quarterback position, you have to have a constant. You got to have someone who's going to be your guy for the next 10 years, 10 to 15 years.
I agree. I think that's having a quarterback, your leader of the team.
Yeah.
That's why you don't see a lot of these big name quarterbacks that have been solid for years. They're staying with their teams. Teams want to, their team they're on. They want to re-sign their
Oh
quarterback.
yeah.
So
Well, I know as a Lions fan, they're definitely going to resign Matthew Stafford. I mean, yeah, it's disappointing that he hasn't really won a whole lot of games, but I think he's a good quarterback. A lot of teams would love to have Matthew Stafford as their quarterback.
I agree.
Instead of what they have.
I agree.
So, I read that they're working on his contract. Preliminary contract talks. So, they need to resign him. You just want that guy who's going to be there for 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, I think that's important for every NFL team to have a quarterback that you can trust, that you can count on. I think that's really a cornerstone of your franchise and how you can. And I think that's what the Browns are hoping for. They can pull out of this draft at some point, and then move forward with it.
Because I'm thinking that this will happen. They'll let Brock Osweiler play this year, and they'll have a quarterback behind him. Let him develop in the wings. 'Cause I feel like, despite last season's almost winless season, 1-15.
Yep, 1-15. They beat the San Diego Chargers.
That's
as their
right.
sole win.
Oh yeah, I think Hugh Jackson is a good coach. He's a really good offensive coach. I feel like he got a raw deal in Oakland because he did a great job that season. And I guess Al Davis passed away during the season. Rest in peace, Al Davis. But he was fired after that season. I felt like he was building something. So I kind of feel like Hugh Jackson is a good coach.
I think
He
so
has to
too.
be on the same page with the general manager.
Right.
And you have several picks, so hopefully you can get some players out of it.
Yep, I think that's their Moneyball strategy, if you will, coming into the draft, and we'll see if it works out.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, so our last topic is the MVP race. And I feel like there's really 3 players that are like the headliners of the MVP race. There are actually 4 players. There's Russell Westbrook, who's averaging a triple-double. That hasn't been done since the 1961-62 season when Oscar Robertson did it, the Big O. And hasn't been done in a while. And we'll show you his stats on the graphic. And then there's James Harden, who transitioned to point guard in Mike D'Antoni's system. He's averaging a double-digit assist and about 8 rebounds per game.
So almost a triple-double like Westbrook.
Yeah, it's almost a triple-double. And they're a higher seed in the West than the Thunder. Thought you should note that. And Kawhi Leonard is someone else to talk about. He's one of the best two-way players in the league. He's really grown as a player, since being drafted back in 2011.
Yeah, I think he's been in the league for this is his 6th season. He was drafted on the Spurs and developed on the Spurs. That's how they like to have homegrown players like that. I agree. I think he's really developed as a defensive player and an offensive player. He was always known for his defense, but now his scoring ability has risen so high. He's averaging 26 a game right now, while defending the best player on the other team. That's a very, very important attribute to have, to be able to defend and score.
Yeah, and also, I consider LeBron James an MVP candidate because he's just consistent every year. He's been consistent for pretty much his whole career, averaging 25 plus points a game every year. He's a great consistent player. You expect him to play well every year, and he's a versatile player as well. He's a great defender. He can play point forward in some lineups.
Right.
Just really a great player. Not to mention his 3 NBA championships, and especially the one last summer.
The biggest one.
The
biggest one. A championship to Cleveland was a long time coming.
Yeah.
So, I agree. I think that LeBron has a legitimate argument to being in the MVP race this year. I know the Cavs are struggling right now, but they have had to overcome a lot of adversity. With winning the championship last year, to having a lot of their players injured throughout this season, losing J.R. Smith at the beginning of the year. They brought on Kyle Korver for some shooting. But yeah, I think that LeBron definitely is in the talks for the MVP race. A lot of people right now are saying it's really narrowed down to James Harden versus Russell Westbrook.
Yeah,
And their statistical figures are off the charts. We haven't seen these statistics in like you said, almost 50 years. But I think I was watching a show yesterday, and a lot of experts are hoping for this to happen, that we have our first co-MVPs of the league. Because of both of their statistics are off the charts, they're so valuable and important to their teams.
absolutely.
That it's going to be a tight race, and it may come down to there being co-MVPs of the league.
I mean, I'll just say this. I think Russell Westbrook should win the MVP. I mean, we haven't seen triple-double in 50-plus years. I mean, I said Oscar Robertson did it back in the 1961-1962 season. It's been a while. But, I mean, they're the 6th seed right now in the Western Conference, so they might not go that far in the playoffs.
Right.
And I kind of feel like whoever votes for the MVP is obviously not fan voting. It's the people in the league office, I guess. They vote for the MVP.
It's also some writers around the league. So there's some writers and some media people around the league. They have some votes.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think Russell Westbrook should win the MVP. He is. I think without him, the Thunder are last in the league. Honestly, I think without Westbrook,
Last in the league?
I think their team would probably be last in the Western Conference without Russell
So
Westbrook.
you think they would be probably like an NBA lottery?
Yeah, I think they'd be a lottery pick without Westbrook, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
He brings that much to the table.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think that's what you're looking for in an MVP. The most valuable player on your team,
Yes.
should win the MVP race.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see them going neck and neck in the next couple weeks. I think there's 3 weeks left of the NBA season, so.
Yeah, I just kind of worry that maybe like they'll hold it against him if he doesn't have a deep playoff run, because maybe James Harden will lead the Rockets to a deep playoff run, maybe make it to the Western Conference Final, and they might give it to him because he went farther in the playoffs.
But I think that's more of a team accomplishment. I know it does have some factor into the MVP voting, but you can't knock a player because his supporting cast isn't as good as someone else's.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That doesn't. I feel like the MVP race is more of a personal achievement. I mean, the MVP of the league is the most valuable player on your team, but I think Russell Westbrook just puts his team to another level.
Well, and I feel like over the years, Russell Westbrook has received some really unfair criticism. I mean, people would doubt him like as a point guard. It's like, oh, he's a shooting guard, or oh, he scores too much, and just a lot of ridiculous claims about him. He's always really worked hard as a player. He's gets everyone involved, and he's gotten better as a player too.
Right.
And, as you can see, him averaging a triple-double doesn't
It's
happen.
phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. It doesn't happen every year, and I feel like him getting the MVP would really help him silence some of the haters.
Right. I think it would solidify, him as a player. I think those, like you said, silence some of the haters. I think they have nothing else to say once he wins the MVP. Honestly, that really puts him up on that pedestal as one of the elite players in the NBA.
Yeah.
Well, he has my vote anyway.
He has my vote too. That's our vote.
Well, that's it for today's Let's Talk Sports by the Lake. Again, I'm Jake Bartko.
I'm Julian Howell.
And we look forward to talking to you again in the next coming weeks.
Thank you.